You guys have both spent a lot of time in the courtroom and studied this real closely. What's your first big takeaway from what you've witnessed, Ben?
Well, I think the arguments that are going to appear in front of a jury trial eventually are going to be really revolving around what do the relocation guidelines mean. And the St. Louis side is saying, hey, these are basically a contract. These lay out how a team has to move, and if you don't fulfill all of them, then you didn't do it right. And the NFL side, ironically, after making the relocation guidelines such a big deal, are saying these things don't even matter, and because they don't even matter, they don't constitute a contract, we shouldn't even be here. And that seems to be the biggest conflict so far.
And I really, from a non-legal perspective, as I sit in there, I really thought it would be more competitive, but every time something happens, and then I ask attorneys about it, it seems like this is just a rout in favor of St. Louis. As a matter of fact, I don't know how you felt, Ben, the other day, but after the change of venue hearing was just so soundly trounced and the judge ruled right away, I was thinking to myself, if I were one of these league attorneys, I'd be going back to the league saying, hey, we got a problem here. We better start thinking about settlement. And the St. Louis has not heard from anybody in the league about a settlement yet. But to me, this thing seems so one-sided, and I know I'm biased. But I put my objective hat on, and I'm amazed at how this looks like a rout for St. Louis.
And with the way Judge McGraw described his ruling, that, hey, you said there was nobody caring about football, so why would you be concerned about getting in, jurors that are not objective? Boy, I think he really kind of put the needle in, right?
I thought that was the line of the day the other day, and it was the last thing that he said. But he said they've really undermined their own case in regards to the change of venue because they want it one way with the summary judgment hearing where they say, well, no, this is a situation where St. Louis didn't care about having the team, and now they say, well, St. Louis cared so much that they want to punish the league by having the case heard in St. Louis, and then they would take a lot of money from the league.
Yeah, their argument is that they cannot get a fair trial here in St. Louis for a few different reasons. One, St. Louis residents, they have so much vested in this. Hearing the talks of damages requests in the 10 figures, they'd say, well, as a resident of St. Louis, I owe it to St. Louis to try to get that money. And the judge said, no, that's not the way this works. If that was the case, then you could never have city residents be involved in a jury that involves a municipality. That's not the way the law works. And then the other thing he said was, look, you're making this argument where, it doesn't stand up. You guys have said that St. Louis didn't care enough to make an effort to keep a team, and now you're saying that they care so much they can't get a fair trial from St. Louis residents, and that doesn't add up. And he also pointed out, Randy, and he made a good point, that's their secondary argument. Their first argument is that the relocation guidelines don't matter at all, which anyone who followed this, Frank, from the beginning saw, Eric Grubman as if he came down as Moses with the 10 Commandments. Those are the relocation guidelines. We're a league of rules. We are vested in keeping teams in their home markets. These things were said by Grubman, by Roger Goodell. All of the owners say Roger Goodell speaks for the league. Yet here are the NFL attorneys in the courtroom saying that whatever Roger Goodell said doesn't matter. How does a jury going to view that?
Yeah, and not only are the attorneys saying it, but Goodell directly contradicted them in his deposition when he literally held up the relocation guidelines when he was asked, do these relocation guidelines matter? And he said, yes, these matter, to paraphrase. So his attorneys in court are contradicting what he says, Roger Goodell.
If you had to bet a Crown Candy milkshake right now, do you think there is going to be a trial?
Okay, this is a big bet, and I think there will be a trial. And in speaking to attorneys as late as today on my way down here, the big thing they want, the first thing that St. Louis wants, is to show publicly that St. Louis was done wrong by the NFL. The money is great, but it's secondary. The big thing is for St. Louis to show publicly and have it be on the record that they were screwed by the NFL. And unless in a settlement the NFL will admit that they did that to St. Louis, I don't think St. Louis would accept a settlement offer.
I think the legal side of this, the NFL side, is going to let this go through a trial and also then immediately appeal whatever happens after that. And they'll try to fight that war and bank that whatever they can get back on appeal will be worth the pain of going through the trial. Now, we'll see if it gets there. And as Randy said, not aware of any settlement talks going on. But what's going to happen first is what we're seeing, and it's kind of like the falling out of a tree approach to defense, where you grab every branch on the way down and try to delay, try to stall, try to keep things from happening, appealing every single decision. And that's what we've seen, and that's why we saw the request for the venue change. Is they're going to try to push this out as far as they can. They're going to try to claim that they can't get fair jury in the selection. Everything they can do to delay it, push it back a little bit more, they're going to continue to do, because they hope that the longer this plays out, the less people will be interested in it. And that's part of what they argued in their request for venue changes. They don't feel like the coverage has been fair. Well, they know a thing or two about unfair coverage. I mean, remember, this is the group that basically made St. Louis look to be a festering hole for pro sports team on the way out. So ironic to hear them argue that. I think that the one thing they're worried about, as much as the punishment of the money, is the documents and the information that could get out. Remember that NFL owners like Stan Kroenke, Jerry Jones, Robert Kraft, they have had to hand over years of cell phone records. They have had to hand over years worth of financial. They will have to hand over years worth of financial documents.
What could be damaging in those?
Oh, they have to say. Stan Kroenke has to say, these are my companies. This is how much I'm worth. Here's what my businesses are. Here's what they spend. If that gets out in a courtroom setting, it's then public. You can imagine some folks, fans of the Arsenal football team, would want to know what Stan Kroenke is worth, what he's spending, what he's not spending, and what all these other can of worms that could be opened with some of these millionaires. Millionaires and billionaires understandably don't like to tell people exactly how much they have and where it is. And this case is going to demand it eventually.
So a personal opinion question. Let's go to Randy here to begin with. We know that the NFL, in an appeal process, this thing could last 8 to 9 years. In fact, they have a case that they've appealed that's actually on like year 8 or year 9 as we speak. So what if it's up to you and you could get a huge settlement and not go through the appeal process? What do you want?
That's a great question. First of all, I would want an admission that the NFL completely violated their relocation guidelines and that St. Louis did nothing wrong to lose the football team. That this was all on the NFL. The NFL made the decision to move, and there was nothing St. Louis could have done about it. They tried everything they could. And I think some bouquets need to be thrown the way of Dave Peacock and Bob Blitz. Secondarily, there should be financial remuneration for the debt service on the Dome, for the tax money that was lost for the city of St. Louis, for the jobs that were lost in the city of St. Louis. And right now, if every count went St. Louis's way, we're probably talking near $4 billion. And I don't think that every count can go St. Louis's way. But I would say $1 billion for an industry that wants to be a $25 billion a year industry, that's where I would start.
So you would take the settlement if it's $1 billion and no trial?
But yes.
With an admission?
But there has to be a very public admission on the part of the NFL.
All right, Ben, personal opinion, what would you
I think the money would have to start with a B. And I think more importantly to me is if the NFL comes out and says we did St. Louis wrong, then we celebrate that. But the NFL is going to continue to do things as it always does things, which is in the best interest of its cartel-like business model. I would like to see something change in terms of the relocation guidelines. I think this case, whether it's settled or goes to trial, should have to decide what do these mean. And we have heard it argued both ways. I think St. Louis should become the example for what happens to future regions, cities, when they're leveraged for public dollars, for stadium upgrades. We're seeing it play out with Buffalo now. The Bills owners have said, give us a new stadium, fully taxpayer funded, or we might go to Austin. Well, what these lawyers that represent the NFL are arguing in this court in downtown St. Louis is that there is nothing that Buffalo can do to guarantee them from losing their team to Austin if the owners in the league choose to do that. You could give them a stadium funded by public money, just like St. Louis tried to do partially with public money on the riverfront. And the NFL can say, no, we're going to go to this privately funded stadium that includes no public money, which is what the Rams did. I would like for someone to say, these relocation guidelines either mean nothing or they mean everything, and the NFL is actually going to now have to start following them. So they either need to be thrown out, and every single city that faces this leverage in the future, when the NFL is trying to put a team in Mexico, or trying to put a team in London, or on the moon, or whatever comes next, they should have a document that says this is what you can do to either keep your team, or you have no cause of recourse, promise nothing, make no effort, because they're just going to do whatever they want in the end. That's what I hope this case comes to represent, and $1 billion+ should be good too. I know everybody wants a team, Frank. I get it.
Yeah.
Everybody wants an expansion team. I don't think there's anything realistic about that. I don't think that's been discussed. And this is me personally. I know a lot of people disagree, and I get it. That's fine. I wouldn't even want the NFL back in St. Louis. After how they treated St. Louis, after what they've said about the city, after the pivot towards soccer the region has made, I would say no thanks to a team. And I know I'm probably in the minority there.
Okay, so for Randy, percentage chances that if they lose, they say, we're not going to give you $1 billion, we're going to give you a team.
Zero. The NFL is very happy with 32 teams. They don't want to expand to 34 and share the TV money with anybody else. And St. Louis right now, and Ben made the point, Edward Jones' company was screwed by the NFL leaving. Enterprise was screwed. They had the naming rights deal. Bob McNair said, we'll give you $300 million in G4 money. Worldwide Technology and Enterprise are two biggest, most philanthropic companies in town. They're invested in hockey and soccer right now. And from a corporate standpoint, I just don't see how the NFL can come to St. Louis after the dishonesty that they displayed in the Rams leaving and go to a company and say, yeah, we'd like to get some money from you. I just don't see from a private standpoint, and certainly from a public standpoint, a governmental standpoint, how the NFL could get a stadium here and then get the corporate support that an NFL team expects.
Okay, another question I'm sure you guys are both asked a lot. Let's say you do win the money in a big settlement. Where does that money go? How is it distributed?
Oh, that's a great question. I do get asked that one a lot. So the group involved in the lawsuit, the city, the county, the Dome Authority, they would win the money. Now, the lawyers got to get paid. The lawyers are working on a contingency, and they would be paid handsomely if they won. And then also the state of Missouri gets, I think, a big cut of anything won on in a lawsuit like this in terms of damages in a civil suit. So that's kind of the breakdown. Now, what exactly the money would go toward? Hopefully not the loop trolley. I don't know. I mean, there would be a lot of fighting about where that money went, I'm sure. And I think, it's not like you would get a check. If you were a Rams fan, you would not get a check from the city of St. Louis, I don't think. So that would be up to much conversation. Where's the money spent? Does it just go into the city's coffers to be used on things? Surely some of it would have to go toward the amount that was spent on trying to keep the team in an effort that proved to be rigged from the start, toward some of either dome upgrades or the future of the dome. What that looks like, that's a huge question for the region, and also, hopefully some of the revenue that would have been gathered by having the team.
And I think it's really important that the governmental entities that would get, $1.3 billion each, that they're really scrutinized, because especially in the city, so much can be done to improve people's lives. And not that it can't happen in the county as well, but if we're going to take the hit that we took and the pain that sports fans had to deal with in losing a franchise, we should be able to put a pretty big Band-Aid on it with the money that was gained from a lawsuit.
Okay, I'm going to have you both play the role of Bob Blitz. You're going to be Bob Blitz, and I'm going to be Stan Kroenke, and I get on the stand, and then I'm going to be Kevin Demoff, and you're going to be Bob Blitz. So, okay, go ahead, take it.
All right, the first question, Mr. Kroenke, that I have is, when did you decide to move the Rams to Los Angeles?
And then he'll say 2000, what will he say? I don't even know, 2014?
My guess is that he would probably say 2014.
Yeah.
And then the question would be, well, why did you tell your vice president, Kevin Demoff, into the summer of 2013 that you were looking at a piece of land in Southern California that would be perfect for a football stadium?
That would be a good, tough question.
And also, why did he register the Rams as a California company in 2010?
When he
which
first
is
took
actually
control.
a fact that came out during this discovery process for this trial.
How would you go at Demoff?
Now remember, Kevin Demoff lies about everything. So
Now he's under oath. That will make a difference, right? My question to Demoff would simply be, why did you continue to carry on the narrative that there was a chance for St. Louis to keep the team when everything the league, everything the lawyers representing Stan Kroenke and the Rams has said that there was no chance that the team was going to consider whatever offer it got to stay. So who was directing him as an employee of the Rams to say these things that directly conflict with what we're being told now? And when did those instructions come? Because I really do think, Randy, I don't know if you agree with this, if this case boiled down to the Rams not winning, we have to go all the way back to the arbitration over the dome upgrades.
Yeah.
I mean, a long time ago. When St. Louis lost that, and the arbiter said, hey, you guys are not going to give these upgrades to the dome. If that's the case, then the Rams can go year to year on the lease. And if the Rams would have said at that time, we're out, there's nothing you can do to make us stay, we're leaving to wherever we want to go, and that's it, it's settled. And that would have been it, both from the Rams and from the league, then there's no case here. Instead, well, yeah, build a task force and make a best effort to keep your ship. Hey, there's a bunch of teams trying to move to LA, see if you can come up with the best plan, which they did, and still they lost their team. It was all of the false encouragement for a plan that we're now told was never going to work. And I would want to know who told Demoff to say those things. Why did he continue to talk about that? Because Demoff's quotes are glaring throughout this whole comment. I want to know who they were. Did he just do them for himself, or was he told by Stan Kroenke that he needs to be saying these things?
The most glaring or damaging Demoff quote would be,
well, all of the fun ones, of course, are when he's calling St. Louis MFers, but that's just more color about how kind of terrible of a person Kevin Demoff is. The things about there being no secret plan. The emails about how to spin the land purchase for the stadium in California as something that was real estate or perhaps soccer related, nothing to do with a football stadium. Those are the things that jump out. Also sending to the league negative articles about St. Louis while the Rams are trying to get approval to leave. Those things jump out as this being not good faith negotiations for a team that was supposed to be working with this host city to try to find a way to stay.
If the St. Louis lawyers would just put a video timeline together of what Kevin Demoff said in his speech to Harvard Westlake and then what really happened. Just put that video up. They don't need to do anything else. If they just want to win a case with video, Kevin Demoff presented them their case on a silver platter.
Which that would be my question for Demoff was, were you told to say these things?
Yeah.
Or did you just make all of these unforced errors on your own?
When it would have been very easy for him to say no comment. That's all he had to say, and he could have been out of this.
what about the really nasty things you can clean up the language?
Yeah.
But what did he actually say again?
Oh, the document that was circulating among Rams employees before the team left. There was an idea that they would do some sort of a goodbye note.
Yeah, it was
referred to the
Kroenke wrote in the email to fans.
Right.
I love St. Louis, and I'll always love St. Louis.
It was referred to as the adios MFers document, and then the forwarding of the pitch for the Riverfront Stadium from Demoff to someone else. It was not sent to the task force, but simply along the lines of mocking the attempt, with vulgarity. Just kind of a real insight into how they were laughing about this attempt to keep the team, which if you were saying all along that you weren't going to stay, it's one thing. But when Eric Grubman and Roger Goodell and owners were telling the task force, keep going, you're on the right track, we got this lined up for you. And remember too, St. Louis did not get routed in the vote, Frank. They won. The chance to keep the Rams, they won not on the first vote, not on the second vote. The third vote, they were closed doors. It was a secret ballot. Jerry Jones was in there twisting arms. And then all of a sudden, the Rams' plan was approved. So this idea that this was never going to work, this plan to keep the team was never going to fly, it wasn't the case. It took 3 times of them voting, making up their own rules on the fly to get what they wanted.
Doesn't it irk you that the national perception of this whole suit is that, hey, the Rams had this top tier clause, they had the right to leave and they left, and St. Louis just looks like some bad eggs?
And I think that's one of the things that needs to be pointed out, and Judge McGraw has pointed that out, that this suit is not about the dome lease. It's about everything after January 12th of 2016, when the approval was made, and Eric Grubman coming to town and having meetings with Dave Peacock, with Demoff sitting in about a new stadium and encouraging St. Louis, about Roger Goodell going to a podium at the Super Bowl in 2014 and saying St. Louis should just keep doing what they're doing, supporting their team. And he has full knowledge that Stan Kroenke, who has told he and John Mara and Art Rooney, yeah, I bought a parcel of land in LA, I'm going to buy another parcel and I'm building a stadium on it. This is a 2013 conversation that they had. And Roger Goodell is saying, I think St. Louis should just keep doing what they're doing. It really is disingenuous on the part of the league.
I go back to what Goodell said of specifically saying that the Rams winning their arbitration battle over the dome upgrades did not excuse them from negotiating in good faith about a new stadium pitch. He said that, and now what we're hearing in court is that as soon as the Rams won that arbitration hearing, that nothing else matters. Well, the judge in this case has ruled time and time again that this isn't about the dome lease. That was settled. This is about the effort St. Louis made to keep its team in a new stadium on the riverfront after that. And that's why, to me, and we'll see where this goes, but the money St. Louis spent trying to keep the team, which is more than $18 million, that's a layup, I think. I mean, there's no way that the NFL can present a case that says that money alone should not be coming back from someone, because they're admitting that all of those good faith negotiations they said they had, they were never ever going to get what the promise was at the end of the rainbow if the St. Louis region got there. They've basically said that as much. So who was telling these guys to build this task force? Who was telling them to spend this money? They're going to make the argument that the task force committed these resources and this time and this energy towards something it knew from the start that it couldn't win. And I don't believe that. There are a lot of smart people involved in that. I don't think they were doing it just to make a fool out of themselves.
And one of the many items in the relocation guidelines that weren't adhered to, first of all, after the team makes the decision to move, they were supposed to take out lots of advertising in the Post-Dispatch, because that's the newspaper of record in St. Louis, and explain the move. Never happened to my knowledge. It was never in the Post, right?
Right.
They had the Dog and Pony Show, which wound up being a useless endeavor for St. Louis with the town hall meeting. And then another thing that they were supposed to do is have communication with city and state government. Roger Goodell went to Minnesota's government and said, hey, if you don't do something, you're going to lose your team. Roger Goodell had one meeting with Jay Nixon in which Nixon said, Stan Kroenke told me he's moving. Nixon had one meeting with Stan Kroenke where Kroenke said, I'm moving. Mayor Slay had never met. Mayor Slay had been the 12-year mayor of St. Louis, never met Stan Kroenke. So if you're negotiating in good faith, how can you never talk to the people that are running the governments that you're supposedly going to get money from?
Final thought, prediction, 30 seconds for each of you. What do you think ends up happening?
I don't think that St. Louis settles, and I do think that a St. Louis City jury will find in favor of St. Louis, the county, and the RSA.
I think it's headed that way. I think we're here in January talking about a big trial that we're all going to be in the courthouse covering, and I would expect the Rams and the NFL to immediately appeal, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Get your popcorn ready.